Welcome everyone to an episode of Rich Talks BS. I'm your host, Rich. College football playoffs. This is your top 25. And we start with number 25. 25, Missouri. 24, Tulsa. 23, North Carolina State. 22, Oklahoma State. 21, Colorado. 20, Texas. 19, Louisiana. 18, BYU. 17, North Carolina. 16, Iowa. 15, USC. 14, Northwestern. 13, Coastal Carolina. 12, Indiana. 11, Oklahoma. 10, Miami. 9, Georgia. 8, Cincinnati. 7, Iowa State. 6, Florida. 5, Texas A&M. 4, Ohio State. 3, Clemson. 2, Notre Dame. 1, Alabama. This past week was a pretty interesting week, especially because we had teams losing that I guess shouldn't have lost, but then we also had teams losing that lost some pretty good games. One, for example, was BYU and Coastal Carolina. Coastal Carolina didn't have a team to play, so they went out and got BYU, which was a really good matchup because both were coming in undefeated. This was actually going to show which one of the two teams was better outside the Power Five, and Coastal Carolina showed up. BYU was good. They're really good. They're still explosive. Like I said before, if you haven't seen their game, this one was the one you should have watched. Even though they lost a really close game. I mean, it came down to the last play of the game. The actual last play of the game. Trying to pass the ball into the end zone. Well, pass the ball to get into the end zone. And it was stopped pretty much like at the 2-yard line by Coastal Carolina. Coastal Carolina is starting to show that they are legit. You know, being in a conference that's outside the Power Five, they showed up. Really good team. Defense was good. Offense was good. They were just, they just had it. They had BYU's number that game. And to stop the last play of the game, stop it right there, to win the game was just really good. 22-17, that game was really close. So that also put Coastal Carolina into their conference championship game, and they have Louisiana, which Louisiana beat Appalachian State 24-21, which also winning that game put them in their conference championship game. So to see Louisiana and Coastal Carolina is going to be very interesting. This is a game that's going to show, if Coastal Carolina wins, they're going to get bumped up, which, could land them against a Power 5 team, and to see if they really have what it takes to become part of that group, to keep up with the Power 5 team, to, possibly win against a Power 5 team. But we'll see what happens. We still got, a couple of weeks left. We still got their conference championship game left, so we'll see what happens. Top 6 didn't change. That top 6, all 6 teams outside Ohio State, they all played. They all had, really good games. I mean, Alabama beat LSU 55-17. Notre Dame beat Syracuse 45-21. Clemson had Virginia Tech, beat them 45-10. A&M beat Auburn 31-20. And then Florida beat Tennessee 31-19. Like I said, Ohio State didn't play. Or Ohio State did play, actually. Sorry. They won 52-12. The game coming up against Michigan is the game that's canceled. So with that game being canceled, they weren't eligible to participate in the Big Ten championship game, which it would be against Northwestern. But following the events of, the top 25 coming out and, and the events that's coming up in the next week, with not being able to play Michigan, Big Ten, Big Ten crew came in, or they went in today, had a conference, had a meeting, and actually changed the rules so Ohio State can play in the Big Ten championship game, which kind of could give them the upper hand in getting into the playoff if they could beat Northwestern. Right now, we're waiting to see, like the ACC championship game, which is Clemson versus Notre Dame, the SEC championship game, which is Alabama versus Florida. Those two are the biggest two games of who's going to actually be in the college football playoff. I mean, we could see Clemson beat Notre Dame, which both would have one losses to each other, and they both still get in. We could see Florida beating Alabama, both of them having one losses, but Florida having the advantage over Alabama, and both of them could still get in. I mean, we could be seeing a ACC SEC playoffs. Like the SEC could be, Alabama and Florida could be 1-4, Clemson and Notre Dame could be, 2-3. Or, we could have, if Clemson beats Notre Dame, then would Notre Dame drop to 3 or would they drop to 4? I mean, then you got Clemson winning. They could go to 2 or they can go to 4. I don't see them falling to 3. I don't see them staying at 3 if they win. If Florida beats Alabama, does Florida go to 2? Or do they fall to 3? Or do they go to 3? It's kind of hard to see, kind of hard to tell right now. We got, waiting on these 2 championship games, seeing who's going to win, seeing who's going to fall where. Even with Texas A&M, being 5 and Florida being 6, A&M has the upper hand over Florida because they beat Florida earlier this year, but also lost to Alabama. If Ohio State loses and Florida loses, does that put Texas A&M into the playoffs? There's so many scenarios with this college football playoff. Only having the 4 slots. This is when the 6 slots would come into play. 6 teams would make it, I guess, a little bit easier, kinda. But I mean, there's no telling what could happen. We have the Big 12 championship game. There's Iowa State versus Oklahoma, the rematch there. That's going to be a really good game. And then, like I said, the Big 10 championship game is Ohio State and Northwestern. These games coming up in the next couple of weeks. Makeup games on December 19th, as well as conference championship games on December 19th. That's going to be a crazy weekend. We just got to see what's going on there. So going back to the top 25, there was 4 teams that weren't ranked last week that are ranked this week. That's Texas, Colorado, North Carolina State, and Missouri. They had good games. They're winning their games. We had a few drops. We had a few jumps. Coastal Carolina being 1, jumping up 5 spots to number 13 after beating BYU. BYU falls 5 spots, so drops 5 spots. So they kind of just, switch spots. Oklahoma State losing to TCU. They dropped 7 spots. Kind of surprised they're still kind of in it. They didn't lose horribly, but that was a game they should have won, especially against TCU. USC is going to be playing in the Pac-12 championship game. Just waiting to see who their opponent is going to be. They're still undefeated. Beating Washington State 38-13. That was a good game. USC looks good. It's just, we still won't see a Pac-12 in the playoff once again. It's going to be a little while to see, that conference become, a powerhouse conference like it used to be. It's still a Power 5, but they're just not like, that powerhouse like they were, years ago. Cincinnati, waiting to see what's going to happen with them. They actually have Tulsa. If they beat Tulsa, for their conference championship game, then could we see Cincinnati, in the playoff? Watching Florida fall, watching Ohio State fall. possibly seeing Clemson fall. If Clemson falls, that's Notre Dame beating them twice. If Clemson loses the ACC championship game, they're out of the playoff. We could see Florida, Clemson, Ohio State lose, conference championship game. Does that put Cincinnati in the playoff, or does that put Texas A&M in the playoff over Cincinnati? It'd be very interesting to see, either one, possibly seeing a rematch with Texas A&M and Alabama. That it'd be interesting to see, but I'm pretty sure it would be the same outcome. Alabama is just rolling right now. They're just on a roll. They got the momentum. This is like one of the best Alabama teams that I've seen. It's up there in that top 5 teams, if not the best team that they've had, ever. Their receivers are good. Mac Jones is playing really good. They just have it right now. To me, it seems like it's the easiest road that they've ever had to winning a national title, which is kind of crazy. It kind of looks like LSU from last year. LSU had a clear road to win the championship game, and that's what happened. It was just too easy for them. But we'll see what happens. The top 25 is interesting. The other teams are interesting. To see who's gonna fall into the New Year's Six. We could possibly see a Georgia Cincinnati in the Peach Bowl, or just seeing something like that would be really good to see and be a good game to watch. To see if Cincinnati could actually hold up their own against a Power 5 team, especially an SEC team in Georgia. Like I said, we'll see what happens. We still got a couple more weeks, a few more rankings to fall. December 19th is going to tell it all, because then after that is Selection Monday, and that's when we're going to see who's in what bowl game, who makes the playoff, and that's when we're going to see, kind of get a better idea of, how it's really going to go down. So, I can't wait. College football is very interesting this year. It's exciting at the same time, and I can't wait to see what's going to happen. I'm ready for it. Kind of wish December 19th was this weekend, just to, get it all out the way. But, we'll see what happens. Like I said, we'll see what happens. Very good games coming up. I'm ready to watch. Ready to see it. It's exciting. So, that's all the BS I have for this episode. Until next time.